This is Laura Flanders and Friends with a rewind from the archives.
There's a red side and a green side to May Day. And the green side begins with Thomas Morton in 1627, erected a maypole 80 feet high in Quincy, Massachusetts, called Marymount. And there, Indians, a Ganymede, being gay people, runaway servants, even runaway slaves, danced and drank and had festivities on the 1st of May, 1627.
If people have heard of the holiday of May Day, they've probably usually heard either of an ancient pagan spring festival or a modern celebration of worker resistance.
We know about it because so much of history is written by the rulers. They went and attacked from Boston. Cotton Mather, William Bradford. They made class war against this rainbow coalition of multiculturalism that begins American history, really.
Well, our next guest has a new book that brings all of those holidays together. Peter Linebaugh is Professor Emeritus at the University of Toledo and the author of many books, including the Magna Carta Manifesto, Stop Thief, The Commons, Enclosures and Resistance, as well as his newest, The Incomplete, True, Authentic, and Wonderful History of May Day.
Hooray, hooray, the 1st of May. Outdoor effing begins today.
All right. Well, tell us a few of the roots.
May Day is the International Emergency Distress Signal, and it's French. It just means come to my aid.
Okay.
Please help me. We need help, but the help must come from one another. And as you say, May Day is a day without work. It's a day without the job. It's a day without money. It's a day of fellowship. It's a day of nature loving, because it has to do with the fertility of the ground.
So that was the first May Day holiday was the Spring Festival.
Yes, exactly.
And who would celebrate and how?
They celebrated in many different ways, from Scandinavia with barking dogs, or making rough music with pots and pans, or dancing around the maypole, or going out in the woods and leaping over hedges and fences, and many maids went into the woods and came back different than they went out. To quote a Puritan who was opposed to May Day back in Queen Elizabeth's time.
So the first was the Spring Festival.
Yeah.
And then the Workers' Holiday. Before we get there, let's talk a little bit more about resistance and the U.S. experience. The Puritans went as hard as they could against May Day to try to wipe it out, right?
They did.
Who were they?
They did.
Tell us about that.
I think the story here is the green side. There's a red side and a green side to May Day. And the green side begins with Thomas Morton in 1627, erected a maypole 80 feet high in Quincy, Massachusetts, called Marymount. And there, Indians, a Ganymede, being gay people, runaway servants, even runaway slaves, danced and drank and had festivities on the 1st of May, 1627.
And you know because?
Well, you can read about it. We know about it because so much of history is written by the rulers. They went and attacked from Boston. Cotton Mather, William Bradford. They made class war against this rainbow coalition of multiculturalism that begins American history, really.
It begins American lyric poetry, you write in the book.
Yes, I do. And they said, here's a song. Now only read the last 2 lines. With the proclamation of the 1st of May, at Marymount we shall keep a holy day. So their notion of divine and of the sacred meant love among one another.
And we should say the Mary is M-E-R-R-Y, as in happy, not Mary as in Mary and Joseph.
Right. This is a secular Magnificat, we could say.
Now, the Puritans didn't like that.
And they didn't like it at all. The Puritans are for the control of sexuality. They're for the expropriation of the uterus. They're for the destruction of Indians. They're for, above all, the imposition of endless work.
You mentioned
for our sins.
Cotton Mather was one of the early, not just Puritan leaders, but also kind of traders and commodifiers.
Exactly. He wanted to turn the earth into commodities in order to trade.
So we're talking about an economic conflict as well.
Yes, we are. There are different paths. Thomas Morton had a notion of abundance. Mather and the Puritans had a notion of scarcity, that you had to labor in the sweat of your brow for your bread, when all around you is the green world where fish and birds are there for the taking. I mean, I exaggerate somewhat, but in Virginia, the work week was 4 hours long among indigenous peoples. And this takes us to the second great story of May Day, the Haymarket story of 1886, the 1st of May, and that's the 8-hour movement.
That's right.
8 hours a day. Yeah, because right at the end of slavery times, the notion that with the 13th Amendment and the abolition of labor from sunup to sundown, comes the factory, comes the mines, comes the Gilded Age, where all that gold is for the 1%. But people from China, people from the Balkans, people from the Mediterranean, immigrants come, the Welsh, more Irish. And they come and they learn from the African-American experience that with struggle, slavery can be abolished. But they introduce racism as well. The people who developed the mechanical reaper, bringing industrialization and mechanization to the Great Plains, to the Neolithic Age, the people who actually made those machines were iron molders, and McCormick, the McCormick reaper, his rate of profit was 71%. He cut wages by 15%. The iron molders went on strike. 4 were killed by the police because McCormick and the Business Bureau of Chicago hired the police, the Pinkertons. This is the origin of police. For the property developers, for the owners of the tools of production. The McCormick reaper mechanizes Mother Earth. Now that abundance that we had with Morton, now that fertility of thousands of years becomes subject to the iron shaving of the reaper, and agribusiness prevails, ruining, by the way, the peasant life because of lower prices in Europe and the rest of the world. It's a major globalizing of the human stomach.
So the 4 are killed.
4 are killed. Anarchists, socialists, communists, ordinary people outraged and say we're going to have a meeting on the 4th of May at Haymarket, which is where the hay came in, which is basically a gas station when you think about it, because it's horses that make things run, not cars, not the internal combustion engine. So at Haymarket, there's a vast crowd. It's in the evening, and a stick of dynamite is thrown after the police come to disperse the meeting. And to this day, no one's sure who threw that stick of dynamite. Right. Certainly among anarchists, among some, there was a cult of dynamite. Certainly among the police, there was often provocations and agent provocateur. So it remains a mystery. But what happened was a tremendous repression afterwards. Forget the law, lock them up, throw away the key, was what the sheriff said.
And several ended up being hanged.
8 were accused. 8 were accused. 1 committed suicide, Louis Ling. 4 were hanged, including August Spies. And his last words I would like to quote, if I can remember. The time will come when our silence will be more powerful than the voices you throttle today. That's August Spies.
One of the labor organizers who summoned the crowd to the rally and was accused and executed.
He was a part Chippewa Indian.
So bring it up to the present day. Where are we? Where is May Day? And where should it be if we were to be true to the Albert Spee's, Thomas Morton legacy?
Well, first of all, it's a day without work. Second of all, it's a struggle against those who force us to work. Apartheid came down with a massive mobilization of May Day workers in South Africa. 2006, Si Se Puede in Los Angeles, Chicago, the largest May Day gathering in North America ever among undocumented, Spanish-speaking Americans. That we need to remember.
Living legacy.
There's a great power in this day, this May Day. We must remember the Haymarket martyrs who preserved their name in history. In America, they moved Labor Day to September, and on May Day they called it Law Day. This is the ruling class. But the people who remembered the martyr, remembered August Spies, Albert Parsons, Engel, and Fisher, were Mexicans. They called it the Day of the Martyrs. This is an international day, and it began here in America.
Hello, dear listeners, it's Laura. For 135 years, workers around the world have taken to the streets on May 1st to stand up against exploitation and fight for fair treatment and justice. In that spirit, we continue to dedicate ourselves to reporting on resistance, especially to fascism. We've hit the road running, reporting first and early on Bernie Sanders' Fighting Oligarchy tour, and in our report from Selma on the African-American experience of fascism in the USA. We're committed to following the story and going where the important action and wisdom is, but we can't do it without your help, which is why we've launched the Laura Flanders and Friends Resistance Reporting Fund, and it's why we're asking our viewers and listeners like you to contribute to it. We are non-commercial and advertising-free. We're beholden to no party or corporation. But that freedom comes at a price. If you're able to help us pay for the time and labor and concrete costs that are associated with real reporting, please do it. Make a one-time donation or make it monthly. And in so doing, you'll be helping to keep us on the air and free for all in these dangerous, difficult, important times. All the details are at lauraflanders.org/donate. Thanks for being part of our community.
Is it still today a red-green day, a day of bringing those two together and remembering some of the green roots of the red workers' resistance movement?
It has to be, Laura, because of all the talk about the Anthropocene, all the talk about climate change, all the talk about desertification, treating the Pacific Ocean as if it were a sewer. That is, the whole green side of the earth is being destroyed by capitalist imperatives of ceaseless production and accumulation and forcing work on everyone.
So if the struggle ought to continue, and I'm with you on that, and the story needs to continue to be told that there are other ways to live, the way that Thomas Morton described and practiced, and not him alone, then what do we do? What would you have us do in the media and in this country this May Day?
Yeah, this May Day, first of all, Black Lives Matter is against this police state and against the prisons. We must open the doors of the prisons, number one. That's Jubilee. Number two, Occupy. Occupy taught us to common, taught us of mutuality, taught us about how to be responsible for our own security, taught us how to be responsible for gathering our own clean water. This is an experience. These are two experiences, I think, that we have, and many of people who are listening, I hope, will remember and have stories from those times of Black Lives Matter against the police state, basically, the racism, and Occupy. And then we gather to common and to start the discussion about what kind of world can we build.
And we do that with dancing? I want to have the dancing in there. And finally, because this is such a critical issue, we talk about it so often on the program, when you say open the doors of the prisons,
yes,
in the period that you're talking about, in the periods that interest you, how did people deal with conflict amongst them? without locking people up and throwing away the key?
Well, the biggest conflicts were those who were taking away the land from people. And but because they had the state and the army behind them, it was difficult to go up against them. And it's very hard to lock up the 1%. And I'm not sure we want to lock up the 1%. Let's give them a chance to make amends. Honest and true amends. And reparations can help them. Because we want the earth restored. We want to recuperate what's been taken from us. And when we fight those bosses, we will find that the divisions that have been imposed upon us, whether it's by gender, sexuality, racism, or age, will disappear.
So does the feminist or the women's movement slogan, "The personal is political," mean anything to you?
The personal is political. Well, back in my day, it was Freud versus Marx, so it was all books in the library. But when it came to actual creatures, fellow creatures, its meaning only grows. And now the notion of the person is changing, thinking of transitional people. I'm amazed at what human beings can become, what we can be. It's not just personal, though. It's also social. It's also political. And the changes can happen very quickly, very quickly. Thinking of James Connolly and the Easter Rebellion. Very quickly. Audacity, audacity, audacity. That's the rule of social change.
The book is The Incomplete, True, Authentic, and Wonderful History of May Day. Peter Linebaugh is the author. Peter, thank you so much for coming in.
You're very welcome, Laura.
Workers shouldn't strike and go out and starve, but strike and remain in and take possession, said Lucy Parsons, lifelong partner of Albert Parsons, one of the American labor leaders most associated with the founding of the American May Day tradition. Lucy Parsons was of Mexican-American, African-American, and Native American descent. She was born into slavery, and she was an intersectional thinker and activist a century before the term was coined. Her work after emancipation led her directly into conflict with the Ku Klux Klan and into a lifelong partnership with radical typographer and organizer Albert Parsons. Lucy never ceased advocating for racial, gender, and labor justice all at once, and she's part of the movement that won us the 8-hour day. Parsons' husband, Albert, was one of the orators in Chicago who attracted thousands to a rally near Haymarket Square in 1886 on behalf of worker rights. After police charged the crowd and a stick of dynamite was thrown, he was one of those arrested and later hanged. Lucy it was who led the campaign to exonerate the Haymarket martyrs, and then she carried on their work, leading poor women into rich neighborhoods to confront the rich on their doorsteps, challenging politicians at public meetings, and marching on picket lines. She was the only woman of color and one of only 2 women delegates, the other being Mother Jones, among the 200 men at the founding convention of the IWW, the Militant Industrial Workers of the World. There she was the only woman to give a speech. She called women the slaves of slaves and urged the IWW to fight for equality and assess underpaid women at a lower rate for union fees. She also called for the use of nonviolence and occupation of the means of production. You can see her principles in the sit-down strikes of the 1930s in Detroit, the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s, and the Occupy movement of today. She died in 1942 in a house fire at the age of 89, but in the celebration of May Day, her work endures. Long may her intersectional spirit live.